Hello, greetings from me, Muhammad Muntasir Basal. I'm gonna talk about echinococcosis. Other names for the disease: hydatid disease, hydatidosis, dwarf dog tapeworm. Echinococcosis is a parasitic disease characterized by the development of the larval or metacystode stage of Echinococcus species, a genus of tapeworm found in the small intestine of the dog, which is the definitive host, and characterized by the formation of large fluid-filled cysts in the internal organs of the intermediate host. We have two species of veterinary and public health importance: Echinococcus granulosus and Echinococcus multilocularis, which are the unilocular and multilocular hydatid disease. Here we have the adult Echinococcus species, which is a tiny tapeworm, only from 1 to 7 mm in length. The entire tapeworm has only 3 proglottids: immature, mature, and gravid one. Here the Echinococcus granulosus showing the scoliosis and the large gravid proglottid. Again, Echinococcus multilocularis, which have nearly the same structure. Now, the most important part of our presentation, which is the life cycle of Echinococcus. Adult stages of Echinococcus granulosus live in the small intestine of the dog, which act as definitive host. The dog sheds the last proglottid of the adult tapeworm with feces. In the environment, the proglottid releases several eggs that contaminate the surroundings. Depending on the genotype of Echinococcus, several animal species may act as intermediate host. The main intermediate host is the sheep, that acquires the infection by ingesting eggs contaminating the environment. In the sheep intestine, the eggs hatch, releasing larvae that via the circulation travel to the liver, lungs, and other organs. In these sites, the hexacanth embryos develop into cysts. These are characterized by an external fibrous capsule, middle laminated layer, and internal layer, which is the germinal layer. The life cycle is complete when a definitive host, dog, ingests infected sheep offal containing the hydatids. In the small intestine of dog, the protoscolices evaginate and develop into adult tapeworm. Humans acquire the infection by ingesting food, particularly poorly washed fruits and vegetables, contaminated with tapeworm eggs. So the human acts as intermediate host, or actually blind host, with hydatid cysts forming in several organs, particularly liver and lungs. Now, the pathogenesis. In domestic animals, the hydatid in the lung or liver is usually tolerated without any clinical signs, and the majority of infections are only revealed at the abattoir, where oncospheres have been carried in the circulation to other sites, such as the kidney, pancreas, CNS, or marrow cavity of long bones. Pressure by the growing cyst may cause a variety of clinical signs. In contrast, when humans are involved as intermediate host, the hydatid in its pulmonary or hepatic site is often of pathogenic significance. One or both lungs may be affected, causing respiratory symptoms. And if several hydatids are present in the liver, there may be gross abdominal distension. If a cyst should rupture, there is a risk of death from anaphylaxis. The unilocular or single compartment hydatid cyst of Echinococcus granulosus has a thick cyst wall with a thin germinal membrane located just inside it. Broad capsules containing protoscolices bud from the germinal membrane. When a dog ingests the hydatid cyst containing the broad capsules and the protoscolices, each protoscolix develops into an adult tapeworm. The multilocular or multi-compartment hydatid cyst of Echinococcus multilocularis lacks the thick cyst wall of the unilocular hydatid cyst. It is often described as alveolar or similar to a bunch of grapes, lacking the thick cyst wall of the unilocular cyst, which make it very invasive, often replacing normal tissue, similar to a malignant cancer. Here the hydatid cyst of Echinococcus granulosus in the lung and liver. A photomicrograph of a unilocular hydatid cyst of Echinococcus granulosus showing a thick fibrous capsule and a thin germinal membrane which contain the broad capsules and inside it the protoscoloces. About the clinical signs and pathology, infection in cattle or sheep is generally not associated with clinical signs. A human infection can result in respiratory distress or abdominal enlargement, depending on whether the lungs or liver are infected. In sheep, about 70% of hydatids occur in the lungs, about 25% in the liver, and the remainder in other organs. About the diagnosis, the presence of hydatids as a clinical entity is rarely suspected in domestic animals. Definitive diagnosis of infection is best achieved by identifying adult tapeworms taken from host's intestinal tract. In the rare instance in which Echinococcus species infection is suspected, antemortem diagnosis is accomplished by purging the dog using arecoline hydrobromide and collecting its feces. Entire worms or their proglottids may be collected from the final clear mucus. The eggs of Echinococcus granulosus is ovoid and contains a single oncosphere. Because of serious zoonotic potential, any suspect eggs of Echinococcus species should be handled with extreme caution. Here is the egg of Echinococcus, which resemble other cystod eggs. And here the protoscoloces released from a ruptured cyst. Control and treatment. Control is based on the regular treatment of dogs to eliminate the adult tapeworms and on the prevention of infection in dogs by exclusion from their diet of animal material containing hydatids. This is achieved by denying dogs access to abattoirs and, where possible, by proper disposal of sheep carcasses on farms. It has been found that an incidental benefit from the destruction of stray dogs for rabies control has been a great reduction in the incidence of hydatid infection in humans. Praziquantel can be used to treat adult Echinococcus worms, but will not affect the hydatid cyst stage. The best treatment for the hydatid cyst stage of the parasite is preventing ingestion of the eggs. Now let's summarize what we already talked about. The parasite is Echinococcus granulosus or Echinococcus multilocularis. The definitive host is the dog in Echinococcus granulosus and the fox in Echinococcus multilocularis. The location of adult is in the small intestine. The intermediate host may be the sheep, cattle, or other herbivores in Echinococcus granulosus, rodents in case of Echinococcus multilocularis, humans in both species. Distribution: Echinococcus granulosus distributed worldwide, while Echinococcus multilocularis present in the northern hemisphere. The route of infection is by ingestion of infective intermediate host. Common names: unilocular hydatid tapeworm or multilocular hydatid tapeworm. Zoonotic potential: yes, of course. Some facts: Echinococcus species are the tiniest tapeworms of veterinary parasitology. But as they said, dynamite comes in little packages. As zoonotic diseases go, these tapeworms pack a big bunch if diagnosed. This parasite must be reported to state and federal authorities. The adult Echinococcus tapeworms cannot accumulate in sufficient numbers to cause intestinal blockage. Their pathogenicity lies in the fact that their eggs can develop into unilocular or multilocular, depending on species, hydatid cysts in liver, lungs, or brain of the intermediate hosts. Thank you.